In this episode, I'm going to be discussing a new report from the Africa Development Bank that stipulates that Africa stands to reap a whopping $1 trillion if it optimizes for the AI or artificial intelligence opportunity. I would say it's an amazing eye opener when you read that document. But that is, for me, that's not the real essence of this video or this content. The real essence is my strong disagreement with what they have proposed. I am strongly opposed to that, and I'm going to share my views very quickly. But before I do that, what I'm going to do, just to be fair, is to lay out what that report says, or at a very high level. I'm not going to go into all the details, but I'm going to lay it out at a very, very high level what that report entails, what it prescribes, the steps to follow, and the resultant outcomes. And then I'm going to lay out why I strongly disagree. All right, so let's jump straight into it. So when it comes to the area of artificial intelligence, what this report is saying that Africa could generate $1 trillion, trillion with a T, using artificial intelligence by the year. And I want you to keep this closely. I want you to keep this in your thoughts. By the year 2035. By the year 2035, right? That's what I want you to keep closely in mind. And what they project is that it's going to be equivalent to adding an entire major country's economy to the continent. Adding an entire major nation to a continent of 54 countries. All right, that is all good, right? Until I start peeling to the layer. But before we even go into peeling what the layers are, let's lay the bare facts. There are a lot of challenges on the ground right now. So a lot of countries are in finding their own ways and means to adopt artificial intelligence to boost their economies. So there's not a very structured or coordinated way by which all 54 countries are deploying or implementing AI into their economies. Everyone is doing it in their own way. Some are ahead, others are behind, others don't even know what to do, right? So that is like a mixed bag. So what Africa Development Bank, I think, is looking to do is to bring some structure and coordination so that the entire Africa can move at the same pace at the same time. All right, that is all good. However, these are the challenges that we see in today. So basically, the first challenge is that there are language barriers. Only 0.02% of internet content is in African language. So thinking about giving or providing large language modules the inputs they need to create outputs is a challenge, because there are thousands and thousands of different languages across the length and breadth of Africa. And not all of them have content that is available online, or content that's available in structured databases or even unstructured databases. A lot of them do not have, there's no data available or internet content available for those languages. Only 0.02, possibly maybe Swahili and Hausa, that possibly may have internet content available online. The rest typically do not. Okay, that's a massive setback. So in terms of opportunity, to me, I see this as a potential for an investor to come into mop up content for these kind of languages and make them available for large language modules. So that there's an opportunity there. The next one is lack of infrastructure, period. Africa has 18% of the world's population as at 2026, but owns less than 1% of data centers globally. Data center ownership, less than 1%. a population that commands almost 1/5 of the world's population. So that is telling you there's a massive divergence there. Before we dive into today's analysis, I want to share something very valuable with you. And that is, if you are finding this Africa Business Intelligence useful, you need to know about our newsletter that goes even deeper. We publish 2 specialized newsletters each week that delivers the market intelligence you can't find anywhere else. On Tuesdays, we send out AI Africa Weekly, your source for African AI investment and innovation intelligence. This covers everything from fintech funding rounds to AI implementations across the continent, plus global AI developments that impact African markets. Then on Thursdays, you will get our markets and investments newsletter, which is focused on infrastructure development, traditional sector investments, and business opportunities across African markets. So think infrastructure projects, private equity deals, and policy changes that create real business opportunities. Both newsletters are completely free, and they are read by investors, corporate executives, and business leaders across Africa and internationally. You can sign up for both newsletters by using the link in the description below, right below. Now let's get right back into our video, into our analysis. The next one is the skills gap. Okay, there's a massive skills gap there. That the latest estimates projects that 70% of kids lack basic digital skills. Let that sink in. 7 out of 10 kids lack basic digital skills. And this is a continent basically of kids, of children, because Africa can boast of the largest demographic. When in terms of demographics, Africa has the largest number of young people under the age of 30. Most sub-Saharan African countries population. I did one video recently where I really delved into this. So most sub-Saharan African countries are under the ages. I would say, I think the report said that 70% of most sub-Saharan African countries are under the age of 30. For some countries, over 60% of their population is under the age of 25. Let that sink in. So when I say it's a continent of kids, it practically is. Not that under 30s are kids, but I'm just using that in relative terms, so as to draw a very sharp contrast, at least in your mind, that wow, kids, young people. Let me put it that way, young people. Now, the next, so basically to capture that in essence, 7 out of 10 of all young people in Africa do lack basic digital skills. And that is a worry. And that's a worry. And most teachers are unprepared. Most teachers are untrained in digital skills. Okay. The next one is poor connectivity. Only 27% of Africans have access to mobile internet. Yes, I would say for when you move around the street or whatever, everybody has access to phones, smartphones, and everything. But sometimes, what quality of mobile connectivity do they have? And sometimes it's very expensive. So you sometimes people make a determination: do I buy this or do I buy data? Right. So there's that kind of trade-off that people, especially those who are under the under the middle class or below the middle class. Let me put it that way. Below middle class people always make these kind of choices or decisions, right? Whereas in many advanced countries, that is nothing. It's almost like the air you breathe or the water you drink. You don't even have to think about it. And the internet access is like unparalleled, right? Super fast connectivity. Africa is not there yet. That is also a potential area for opportunity. I know there are platforms like the Starlink that is helping and others, but we need more of those. We need internet connectivity in Africa to be super cheap. It has to be super, super cheap. So the policymakers, governments must make it a must. I did one YouTube video where I was sharing that I believe the time has come for every high school and college campus to have free, unlimited internet connectivity. Ultra fast, ultra high quality internet services must be available in all secondary and tertiary institutions for free, basically. Then also, there must be proliferation of local libraries that spring up everywhere. Every district must have a library, or every constituency, whatever the terminology is for any country. Every district must have a well-resourced library that has access to free, ultra-fast internet connectivity. I believe that is a must. So when you compare that to the rest of the world, where mobile internet connectivity is about 57%. So this is a huge thing. It's a huge, huge challenge. Then the next one is the funding gap. Currently, there's a funding gap, infrastructure that has to do with technology, or technology infrastructure funding gap. That sits anywhere between $68 to $100 billion shortfall. So we need data centers, we need fiber connectivity, we need so much infrastructure to support our digital move as a continent. So this is the groundwork. This is the platform of challenges that the continent faces today. And I don't look at it just from the point of view that, oh, this is a challenge. I also look at it from the point of view that, oh, these are potential areas of opportunity. I see opportunities springing in my eyes when I look at this all the time. It's like I see opportunities where people see challenges. Right. So let's look at what the roadmap or the prescription that the African Development Bank has put forward to be able to solve this, so that it harnesses that $1 trillion additional GDP being added to Africa's economy, and the resultant or accompanying job opportunities that are going to be unraveled by that. So the first one that they are talking about, or the first one that they are discussing, is that there's a phase. They've classified it into three phases. The first phase is the getting started phase, and the timeline for that is between the year 2025 to 2027. That's the getting started phase. And I'm going to come back to this. This is actually laughable, but I'm going to come back to this. So that's the first phase. The second phase is the building up phase. And we're going to go into what each of these means, right? So the getting started, that's a 2-year window. And then the building phase, which is a 3-year window, that is between 2028 and 2031. That's the building phase. Equally laughable. Then the last phase, phase 3, they call it the full power phase, right? And it's also a 3-year window that starts from 2032 and 2035, right? This is a 3-phase strategic plan prescribed by the African Development Bank. Let's go into what each phase is. I'm just going to whisk through this very quickly. This is not the core reason why I'm doing this content, but let's go through it so that at least we're on the same page. At least we know what they are talking about. Okay. So the first phase is 2025 to 2027, as we said. That's phase 1, getting started phase. So basically, they are recommending that countries begin to create pilot programs, and then so basically, pilot programs means that they test AI solutions in controlled environments across key sectors. For me, I think it's plausible, it's good. All these steps that they've highlighted, I don't have any problem with that. I'm going to share where my issue is very shortly. So the first thing is create pilot programs. That's fine. Then the next stage is to build basic policies. That is the regulatory frameworks and ethical guidelines that almost every country on this earth has that. So they're calling on African nations to ramp up this, and they're going to use 2 years to do that. Okay. And then set up computer centers, basically like data centers, large processing centers for data and data and the like. So that's phase 3. All these steps under phase 1. Actually, I said phase 3. I take it back. This is phase 1. So it's like phase 1C. So phase 1A, 1B, and 1C. So all these phase 1A, 1B, and 1C, I think they are plausible. They are great. All right. So let's go to phase 2. So we're going to do phase 2A, phase 2B, phase 2C. So phase 2 is the building up phase, which lasts for 3 years. Okay. Which lasts for 3 years here. Right. So that is train people in AI skills. Okay. I'm going to come back to this very, 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 you know, my cheeky laughs has given me away, basically. So train people in AI skills. That's launch nationwide training programs for youth and professionals. That is, you're going to start that in 2028. Okay, not in 2026. You're going to start that in 2028. And then you're going to create regional partnerships, which is, I think, is a good thing. That's collaborating across borders to share resources and best practice. I think that is fantastic. And also benchmarking as well, benchmarking best practices. Then the phase 2C is test AI in safe environments. Okay, that is also very, very plausible. Okay, so 2A, 2B, 2C, all great. We jumping on to the final phase that they are prescribing. The final phase is it's going to span, as I said, 2032 to 2035. And so that's the full power, or I think full scale AI implementation across the continent. What does it entail? 3A says, use AI everywhere it can help. Okay, that's great. That's deploy AI solutions across economic sectors at scale. So this is massive scaling. And as a result, you create 35 to 40 million new digital jobs. Fantastic. And then reach the $1 trillion goal. Phenomenal. Right. So this captures the essence of the blueprint that the Africa Development Bank has put in place. That if countries implement this kind of phased approach, the continent is going to see $1 trillion upside in 10 years' time. Think about it. Let me put it here. It's going to be in 10 years. 10 years' time, right? That's 2035. This is where my challenge is. I see all these things, phase approach and things plausible. The reason why I'm so opposed to this, not the content, but because of the timeline. I don't know, with all due respect, I think these people, they know what they're doing, but I can sense the people that drafted these are not really practitioners of technology on the ground. Maybe some technocrats, or maybe seasoned diplomats, technocrats that put it together. But I think the reality on the ground doesn't lend itself to waiting to doing all these things in a phased approach for 10 years. I don't think so. This is the reason why. I believe AI is just phenomenally, it's changing at such a fast pace that I think 10 years is going to be, I think 10 years we're going to be in a completely different world. Look at when ChatGPT was unveiled, and I think in November 2022, if I'm not mistaken. In a space of, let's say, 3 years, look at where we are. And we are going to say, we are going to use 2 years, right? 2 years. We start this is the getting started phase. To create pilot programs, set basic policy. You are going to use 2 years to set policies. My goodness. At that time, let me put something in context. Something changed between the border of 2025 and 2026. Okay. When agentic AI became a thing. And when platforms like Anthropic's Claude Code was birthed. It changed everything. What has happened since the launch of Cloud Code, and many that don't know about it, and platforms like Anti-Gravity from Google came into being, what has happened is that basically, according to the CEO of Anthropic, or according to the creator of Cloud Code, right? What is happening is that these AI companies are now able to use AI to code 100% of their applications. And this is February of 2026. As of February, and Claude, they use AI to code 100% of the application. Actually, they just released an update on an update called Cloud Code. It took 1 week for that project to be done using just AI. They just released Cloud Remote, which was built over the weekend by AI. So basically, the area of coding can be handled 100% by artificial intelligence. If you are not a tech person or a developer, don't worry. I'm just going to break it down so that you understand. I just want you to understand what we are dealing with and why putting a policy that, or putting an advice that's going to take 10 years to implement is very laughable. What has happened is that what used to take 6 months to a year to do, having a team of, let's say, 30 front-end developers, maybe another, or let's say 30 back-end developers, like that's like coders, and then a team of front-end developers, quality assurance people, database engineers or architects or whatever it is. What would have taken them a year to do is now taking Cloud Code or Anti-Gravity or Codex. That's OpenAI's version, or ChatGPT's version. It's called Codex. It's taking them a week to do. That means that a lot can be done. A lot of changes will happen so rapidly. Basically, like every 2 weeks, there's going to be an update. Coming. And here we are. We say we are going to use 2 years to build policies, build basic policies, and set up computer centers. I have a serious disagreement with this because this is laughable. We will not even have the briefing room to do this because the change that is coming is so rapid. It's so rapid that we don't even have the luxury to be waiting around 2 years getting started. No. Now let's look at phase 2. I even think the phase 2, the trained people in AI skills, should have been phase 1, where we go all in. By this time, our curriculum should have changed. Primary school, secondary school, tertiary education, everything must change. There must be AI embedded in it, where kids are being taught prompt engineering, they are being taught computer vision, they are being introduced to them. So that by the time they get into, let's say, high school or secondary school, they are super proficient. They are not only doing the generative AI stuff, but they are actually going into agentic workflows, or at a minimum, core automations. They are knowing how to use platforms like make.com, Zapier, N8N, Cloud Code, Anti-Gravity, Codex, and the rest. So that they can be trained. These things are not rocket science. You don't have to earn 4-year college degree to be able to do that. Anybody can jump on YouTube or any tutorial platform with a little bit of logical thinking. Will be able to pick up some decent skills in 3 months. So we waiting when we have the largest number of youth, and we are going to really ramp up training them in AI skills in 2028 and 2031. That's a huge risk. What potentially could happen is that these large language models are going to come up with things, especially when you go into AGI, which is like autonomous agents who can do practically everything that can be done on a computer on their own. When we get to that phase, and I think we're going to get to that phase within the next 6 to 12 months, we're going to get to that phase. That is, by 2027, the world is going to be at that level. If it's at that level that you are now starting training of your people, then that's going to be a huge challenge. So this thing that we're talking about is not just, it's not, this thing that we are talking about is not something in a distant future. I can tell you, when you ask even those who, the creators of all these AI models, the engineers, most of them can't even tell you what's going to happen in 3 years, let alone 10 years. They can't tell you. It's so unpredictable. And the competition is so intense. Competition coming from China is crazy. And that is forcing a lot of innovation to come from continental United States as well. The competition is intense. When you look at competition between OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, it's mind-blowing. Then you layer the Chinese versions on top of it. It's crazy. So we don't have time sitting around doing all these phase approach. I think we need to look at pragmatic measures to move ultra fast. Ultra fast. And I'm going to share about what, when the African Development Bank projected that when what they are saying comes to pass, this is what is going to happen. There's going to be extra value unlocked in the area of agriculture to the tune of like 200 billion US dollars, which is great. And the areas or the potential use cases in agriculture are going to be better weather prediction, pest control, and helping farmers, maybe small scale farmers or the aggregate farming community, smallholder farmers, large farms. It's going to help them. Basically, we're going to see an unlocking of extra $200 billion every year, which is going to be great. Then the next area, these are like the biggest impact areas: retail. That's better experience, better e-commerce, better prediction of demand for e-commerce and those kind of things, better like supply chain and all those things for retail. Then manufacturing is going to unlock, shopping and retail is going to unlock $140 billion projected. Then manufacturing is going to unlock an extra $90 billion. Banking, particularly, I think in the area of credit and fraud detection and things, is going to unlock an extra $80 billion. And healthcare is going to unlock an extra $70 billion. This is what was projected. This is what I'm saying. I don't need to have a rocket science degree to be able to predict this. Yes, $1 trillion in extra value addition or extra or addition to the GDP for the continent is great. But I think if we accelerate this and not make it 10 years, but we push that this boat is going to sail away if by 2030, I would even say 3 years time, if by 2029, knocking on 2030, if we are not up to speed on this, that will be it. The door will be shut. The AI opportunity door will be completely gone because of the speed and the pace of innovation that is breathing down our neck. It's unprecedented. It's nothing the world has ever seen. I can predict that by or before the year 2030, these are the things that possibly are going to happen, particularly in a few areas. Let me pick a few. Area of healthcare. I can predict the pace at which things are going. Certain incurable conditions that have been there for hundreds of years are going to have solution or cure. They're going to be pharmaceutical breakthroughs or medical or procedural breakthroughs that are going to be able to help solve some incurable conditions, particularly I think in the area of cancers and certain chronic conditions. I believe there is going to be breakthroughs between now and 2030 in that area. In the area of education, there's going to be so much breakthrough, especially in the area of personalized learning and personalized tutoring. There's going to be a major breakthrough. But in Africa's context, there's so much opportunity if we harness AI well, that I think, particularly in the area of agriculture, this is my thinking. Between now and 2030, there should be the possibility, if not already there should be the possibility, because we have the world's largest stock of arable land is in Africa. We have land everywhere, very rich in minerals, but we are not feeding the world. There are countries like Ukraine and Russia and the rest that are feeding the world with grain and everything. But Africa has more land than all of them combined, more arable land. Thousands and thousands of, actually, millions of hectares of land available for agriculture, not being harnessed. The biggest headache in Africa is typically the yield. Low yield crops because of poor irrigation, poor fertilization of the soil, and weather conditions. So this is my prediction in agriculture, that there's going to be an era in the next few years, maybe even not, if not months, where there are IoT devices or physical devices, right? Maybe, I don't know, maybe devices like that, let's say a farmer who is farming, let's say 10 hectares of a farm, would be given these devices, and they'll go and place it at vantage points in their farm, maybe 100 of these for 10 hectares of land. And what that widget does is, that widget is something like a climate sensor. So it's able to sense rainfall. Whenever there's rain, it's able to track the quantity of rain that fell. If there's mechanized irrigation, it's able to detect with almost 100% accuracy the amount of water that the soil has just taken in. It's able to detect the weather patterns. It's also able to detect the soil quality, the soil nutrients per time. And that data is relayed back into a database. Okay. And that database feeds a large language model, maybe OpenAI or ChatGPT or one of the cloud models or Perplexity or Google Gemini, whatever the model is. And that begins to give the farmer real-time updates on how their crops and their crops are doing, so that they could put in corrective measures. That data could also be fed into the National Agriculture Department, so that they can put in interventions in real time. When that happens, guess what's going to happen? Yields are just going to quadruple. Yields are going to blow up. So just think about I'm just showing you one use case. That means there's going to be super abundance of food and other agricultural produce on the continent, all because of artificial intelligence. So I think we thank Africa Development Bank for their initiative and their heart, but I think instead of waiting 10 years to recoup $1 trillion, we can accelerate this, and within 3 years, we can make that $1 trillion. And in that 10 years time, maybe that $1 trillion is going to end up being $10 trillion. That is a possibility. But all these kind of phased approach and phased days, let's do this, let's do that, although great, plausible, wonderful, however, it does not meet reality. The reality on the ground is singing a different song. And what we don't want is, we wait so long that these big, large language models, these big AI companies that are outside of Africa will not come up with amazing innovations that will actually literally compete with local businesses, or not compete, actually wipe out local businesses, because it is happening today in the developed world. There are software companies. We saw recently Anthropic releasing Cloud Cowork and Cloud Code, and all of a sudden software stocks started tanking. IBM, they just released a solution that has to do with legacy IBM solutions, like legacy like software solutions that were bought by big banks and big insurance firms. It costs millions and billions of dollars that they've been using. And those software, you can't update them. They don't talk to other newer applications, but it's difficult to get rid of them because it works. Recently, Anthropic has just come up with a solution where all those code that was written in a language called COBOL can be rewritten in any modern programming language. That will make it easier for those kind of software to be able to talk to newer technology. Immediately, IBM took a big hit on their stock price. Billions of dollars were wiped off in a few hours. We don't really want that to happen to our economies, where solutions are created 6,000 miles away and it wipes out entire businesses on the continent of Africa. All because we were waiting and we were facing. We were serializing solutions. No. So I believe the time has come for policymakers and what have you to quickly adopt AI. You need to do multiple things at a time, not one phase at a time. And particularly in closing, one of the things that I noticed is that many countries are thinking about um, building their own data centers and building their own infrastructure and things. I think it's all good. But when you look at the pace of change that is coming, I think the most pragmatic approach is to utilize existing large language models, their enterprise software, enterprise plans available. We utilize them so that we are not left behind, whilst at the same time building our own data centers and developing our large language models parallel. We don't have to build the infrastructure, right? Like we saw in I think in the Getting Started, right? Getting Started says set up computer centers. Yes, we can be doing this in parallel. We don't have to set up computer centers before we can use those computer centers. Let's use existing infrastructure so we are not left behind. And then with time, we can begin to know it well. We have a population that is well trained, well oiled in the area of artificial intelligence proficiency. And then we begin to build our own hardware, our own software, our own ecosystem around AI. Right now, we don't have the luxury to do that. We don't even have the time to do that. Anyway, that's my take. I hope you enjoyed this. And if you did, I want you to also sign up for our weekly newsletter. It's a game changer. That newsletter is nothing you've ever seen. The one that goes out on Tuesday is all about artificial intelligence in relation to the continent of Africa. The latest trends, latest investment, what is happening, who are the movers and the shakers, predictions, and artificial intelligence. And on Thursdays, we share about the markets and investment opportunities across the continent. So if you're interested in stuff like that, use the QR code on the screen or link in the description to get your hands on the latest episode. All right. Peace.